then having fast track courts is justified. And
statistics about how many election petitions have been disposed of when elections are challenged. Statutorily, they say it will endeavor to dispose of within 6 months. Have any idea how many election petitions have been disposed of in that period?
I don't have an idea about election petitions, but I do have statistics on fast track courts in general. Since 2001, since fast track courts were started, fast track courts have disposed of 85% of their cases. This despite the center withdrawing funds for fast track courts. So many fast track courts actually shut down after the first 5-year period. Nevertheless, some states are continuing to fund fast track courts from their own sources.
Your experience is much happier than the experience of this.
Sir, we have some data on election petitions. For the Lok Sabha 2009, I think some 120 odd petitions have been filed against the elected MPs. Out of that, around 40 has been disposed of, and rest are still pending. In the case of 2004, we found that there are large number of petitions. We don't have the number, but we can get it. There are large number of petitions which have just become infructuous because 2004 assembly, the parliament term got over.
I don't, as I said, on this, that subset I don't have the information, but overall, despite withdrawal of center funds, despite reduction of fast track courts, 85% of the cases have been adjudicated, judgment given, which I think is a very good track record actually. So the original idea of having 5 fast track courts for every district, in my opinion, ought to be implemented. The CJI has just given a figure which is just shocking, that we have only 6 judges per million population, whereas the worldwide norm ranges from 50 to 100.
I think that is a skewed kind of thing. If you take the number of judges per million cases pending, we are among the high level. United States doesn't have this ratio.
So please speak in the mic. Yeah.
What happened is, if you take how many judges per million population, that's a misleading thing in the Indian scenario. Many people have nothing to litigate about. If you take number of judges per million cases, we rank very high. We have about, it's not 6, it's about 11 judges per and in Japan it is the highest, it's about 130 or so. But if you take population, that is not relevant. It's something like asking how many courts are there, how many judges there per million crores. That makes no sense. If it is how many judges are there for a million cases which are instituted as statistically likely to be instituted, that's a relevant thing.
Sir, you may be right, sir. But on the other hand, statistically speaking, many people may not be filing cases because our system has become so backlogged.
In fact, one Supreme Court went on to say that we must increase the judge strength 5 times. If you do it in some states, there will be no work at all for judges. I made a very nasty comment. It is something like opening up more graveyards in anticipation of an epidemic. This is the kind of thing which, of course, some Chief Justice told me that you have been very unkind. But I said, you have not disposed of cases. A case which takes only 10 minutes to decide for a trained judge takes 10 years. The system is such.
So,
are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not. I'm an engineer.
You have a very charitable opinion of our tribe.
No, sir. I just, I've gone on, on a statistical basis that, as I said, it may be that some people are wary of filing cases because today there is no certainty of getting any result for a decade. So,
if I may interrupt you for a second to say that for 1,000 population, 338 new cases are filed and disposed of in the United States before tribunals court. The same proportion is 89 in Singapore, 29 in Kerala, 4 in Jharkhand. So we are not, there's no docket explosion, there's a docket exclusion in this country. As you rightly said, people are very are going to court because they get stuck, they can't come back, can't proceed further.
I think those statistics prove the point I was trying to make, sir, because if Kerala has 29 cases per 1,000 people and Jharkhand has 4, I don't think many people will argue that Jharkhand people have better access to social justice than Kerala. So, I think the proof of the pudding is that cases get stuck in court for 10 years, 20 years, and we need to find a way to process them faster. Whether 5 times or 3 times or 2 times, I think we do need more judges. And more importantly, I think we do need the fast track system, which does not permit innumerable adjournments, because we have seen that adjournment after adjournment keeps on happening in the normal judicial system, although there are some guidelines to avoid it. So we have to find ways and means to provide the infrastructure and very rigid guidelines that beyond a minimum or maximum number of adjournments that doesn't happen. So anyway, my thought process, and that is the basis on which I filed the 3 bills. One is fast track courts for criminal cases of elected representatives. By the way, I have also asked for same thing for crimes against women. These are the 2 topmost priorities I have given. Criminal cases of elected representatives and crimes against women I have suggested for fast track courts. Then I have filed a separate bill for amendment of ROPA, Representation of People Act, which would delete the clause which permits today MPs and MLAs to continue even after they have got a conviction. So rather than just remove them on the basis of a charge sheet, I would quickly process their cases, convict them or acquit them within 3 to 6 months maximum, and then give them no scope to continue once they are convicted. They can appeal in High Court or they can appeal anywhere else. That can happen outside them sitting in Parliament. Third thing I have proposed is to reform the system of prosecutors to make them independent. Today there is administrative influence on the prosecutors. So I have suggested something. Please have a look at the draft of what I have suggested. I have involved. I have suggested that it should be done with the concurrence of the judiciary, but should be structured in a manner, restructuring the current system, so that the administration doesn't have the kind of clout that it today has over prosecutors. So with these 3 things, I believe we can make a huge dent in removing criminalization of politics. So this is where I have a slight difference in terms of just simply disqualifying on the basis of a charge sheet against a politician. Now,
National Commission to review the working made a slight change. Their charge sheet, you can ask the police, influence the police to file a charge sheet immediately. For example, there are hundreds of cases against MPs for writing and obstruction and or violation of 144 and all that. But if a charge is framed and the case is not disposed of, he gets rid of it within 6 months. That's the point where his disqualification arises. That is one of the suggestions tossed up in the report of the National Commission. But this appears to be a better idea, that you dispose of the case itself. And pending appeal, now if you file an appeal, the whole thing is open. And it gives you the staggering number of cases of elected representatives who are all criminals in courts.
Just 2-3 quick comments. I realize I've taken a lot of time. So there's another suggestion in this draft bill for election expenditure from one particular pre-declared bank account only. I support that. I think that's a good idea. There is reference to inner party democracy, lower levels electing. That was just discussed earlier when Justice Venkatacharya and Mr. Krishnamurthy were talking. I support the idea that you must have elections and open elections. Again, perhaps I would suggest if technologies like UID can be incorporated to ensure that party members are voting, they are not voting twice, things like that. But that is not a strict necessity. As long as it is open to the media, I think you can ensure greater transparency in inner party elections. Then there is something that for every amount received by the party, a receipt should be issued of course, in principle, it's a great idea. Nobody can oppose it. But again, I would like to reiterate. I think it is easier to dangle some incentives to get at least smaller parties to start adopting these practices, rather than try to enforce, because it is going to be very difficult to get a majority of parties to agree to these things and pass a law until you start demonstrating, like pilot projects. You see, it's working here, it's working there. These people are transparent, they are gaining from it. I think that may be the way to crack open the door. And once that door opens slightly, then all sorts of opportunities are there to push through major reforms. So just conclude by saying that thank you for this effort. This is a wonderful effort, and much more should be done to popularize these ideas and spread them and get more debate going. I would strongly suggest that if a special effort could be made to have a roundtable like this only with editors and heads of media, I think that would help a lot. Thank you.
What's the status of the private members bill?
Gee?
What's the status of the private
No, it's been
members
filed. What's happened is the private member bills get filed, then it comes up through a lottery system. So we still have a year to go in this parliament, hopefully. I'm hoping that perhaps in the perhaps in the next session it can come up. But since the culture has become for last 3-4 decades that it doesn't pass, I'm hoping that we can also have a debate going to change this culture back to the original culture where private members bills passed. And then, on a day when the
Somebody, parliament is over, it lapses on.
yes, but it can be refiled next time.
You have to win again.
The government representative promises that they are considering, and they will have a better bill and consider all that has been said. This is what happens also.
So fortunately, I think once we get the government to at least do that, if the government at least commits on the floor of the House,